Right, so we moving on to part 3 of the extended miasm model lecture series, and this will be doing with the in-between miasms. Let me get to the screen sharing part. And, sorry, that's a mistake there. Right, so this will be filling in the miasms on the way. Let's have a look. We've done the primary stations or miasms. That's in the sora with the acute added before, the psychotic and the syphilis. So we're going to be adding in between. We'll see a typhoid, malaria, ringworm, cancer, tubercular, which we have known before, and leprosy as a new miasm. Filling in the waypoints. So we'll start off with the typhoid miasm. As you can see, it's somewhere between acute and sora. It's got some aspects of both. And the main characteristic is crisis. Is again the thing that provoke or bring about a typhoid crisis is a sudden life-threatening event. But the response is much more measured. It's much closer to the soric response than the acute. So if I respond correctly to this challenge with enough effort and enough speed, then I can survive. So the acute miasm is, there's no thought, it's just a quick automatic response. I fight, I flight, I get out of here, I freeze. Something happens and there's not much thinking, there's not much control, there's not much consideration. Yeah, there's more consideration, but it's consideration that has to happen pretty quickly. So if one is constantly faced with challenges that one responds to in a typhoid-like way, it does lead to exhaustion and collapse. And one of the big groups of remedies we'll see later on is the acid group. Most of the acid remedies could be considered, except for nitric acid, considered to fall into the typhoid miasm. And we know that the acid group as a group sensation of worn out, exhaustion, collapse, used up all my energy, no more fizz left in me. So we've seen these words like crisis, hurry, haste, I must do it now, and ultimately collapse could be part of it as well. Let's look at a situation example. Think about action movie scenes. Sudden danger, there's an acute miasmatic sort of challenge, but instead of responding acutely, the hero takes the decisive and the correct action to lead to survival. So there is hope, and there is a kind of measured, calculated way. And here's to have a look at this movie, this little clip from the San Andreas fault. We can look at a lot of rap music, Eminem music. There's a kind of tenseness in it and having to handle a crisis, and demanding. You think about demanding, very big typhoid remedy in the plant kingdom is chamomilla. So there's that demanding baby. It needs this, it needs it now, although I'm not always sure what it needs. Selected remedies, so as we said, most of the acid remedies, and petroleum. Plant kingdom, well-known remedies like Nux vomica, chamomilla. What else have we got here? Rhus toxicodendron. Animal kingdom, Carba animalis, botulinum, pyrogenium. So botulinum, we might think of that as possibly a no-sode in this. I suppose there might be typhoidinum as well. This takes us on to the next miasm, which is the malarial miasm. And it's got, as we can see here, it's got elements of acute and psychosis, and we'll see how this plays out. The main characteristics: harassed, persecuted, attacked. As I've said, situated between the acute and psychotic miasm. So it's got the fixed permanent aspect of the psychotic miasm, plus it's got periodic attacks from the acute miasm. So if we consider the disease malaria, the plasmodium are always present, that's the psychotic miasm, but they're not always active. So there's a quiet phase, there's no fever, no chills. Then after a while, a sudden acute attack, raving fever and chills, and then that passes. So there's this kind of up and down attacks happening along the way. But the constant background knowledge is that I have this problem, this psychotic issue is troubling me. Selected keywords: attacked, harassed, tortured, persecuted, hindered, stuck, very common. Let's look at this graph over here. This is just a graph of body temperature, looking at a tertian response to malaria. And so the temperature rises every 3 days, or in 4 days, it goes from the high temperature, some days of low temperature, and then another spike again. So here's the kind of acute attack. Temperature goes up to 105 degrees, then drops way down again. Is normal for a long period of time, a day or so. Then on the third day, another acute attack. But the underlying issue of the plasmodium infection continues in the background, exacerbated by these acute attacks. Selected remedies. The main ones we would probably know here are Natmir, and it seems like most of the ammonium salts are as well. In the plant kingdom, the famous remedy, obviously, for malaria miasm is China, and the China salts like China Mir, China Sulph. Chelidonium from the poppy family, the Popiveraceae, Colchicum colosynthesis. Eupatorium from the Asteraceae, a very good flu and sort of bone-breaking remedy. Rus radicans from the Anacardiaceae. Interesting, quite a few of these could pop up in the COVID situation, perhaps the China's China S. Eupatorium has been mentioned, and Spaghella has been mentioned. So there is some aspects of the COVID-19 that has a malarial feel to it. From the animal kingdom, we've got Lac defloratum. That's the skim milk from a cow. You can imagine a cow has an unfortunate situation. It's just been fed, milked, fed, milked. It goes on and on. It's bred, make a new calf, then it's milked again, and so it goes on. There's a periodic problem. There's no great relief in the end. Look, here's an example, situation example, a glass ceiling. An idea in business or in politics or in administration where a certain demographic or a certain genders cannot progress in the organization beyond a certain level. Not that that's designed that way, but it sort of kind of happens by default or in the culture of the organization. So they become stuck at a certain level of operation. It was first coined by feminists, but it applies to minority men and minority women as well. There would be an unfortunate nature about being hit by a glass or being in a glass ceiling situation. The next miasm, in between miasm we're looking at, is the ringworm. And the ringworm we find here between Sora and psychosis. Let's have a look at it. And here's an aspect of trying. It's got the same fixed irredeemable quality of psychosis, but this is kind of like lightened up a bit with the hope and struggle idea of Sora. What quite often we see a wave-like pattern in the patient's life, sometimes hopeful and putting in effort, in other words, struggling to achieve something. At other times I feel it's all too much and I need to give up. So we see the psychotic element coming in. Patients might often say they're trying or try hard. We can see a complaining, obstinate, quarrelsome, and they often need appreciation because they're trying so hard. We can think of calc self, calc soul as remedies that need appreciation in a big way. Mineral kingdom, calc self, calc soul, many of these self-assaults fit into the ringworm miasm. Plant kingdom, what we know here is perhaps not such well-known remedies, but Rus venenata, a relation of Rus tox, but having this different element to it of not such a typhoid miasm like Rus tox, but this one is got this trying, responding, struggling, and then giving up. Animal kingdom, the remedy, the human's milk, lac humanum, and the nosode would be ringworm. So more selected keywords that trying, giving up, accepting, ringworm, hepatic eruptions, those circular eruptions. Let's look at a situation example. Common these days, obese person with metabolic syndrome, and they would say they are constantly dieting. So they get hopeful, they go on a low-fat diet, they lose a bit of weight, they're struggling a bit because there's lack of satiety and life enjoyment. Then they lose heart, give up on the diet. And they get back into binge eating because and now they're in a famine mode in their metabolism. So they gain all their lost weight back and quite a bit more. So they give up the diet. I'll never lose weight. There's something wrong with me. I don't have enough willpower. That's the psychotic phase. Something wrong with me. And after a while, they realize I'm getting too fat now. I want to get into some summer wear, get onto the beach or something. I need to lose weight. So I'll start dieting again. And I'll re-enter the sore weight phase. And I'll be sort of hopeful that I can lose weight, thinking I did lose weight before. So they're always trying to lose weight, but never succeeding. This is called yo-yo dieting, as the weight fluctuates over time, but in effect actually steadily gains up. Now the next in-between miasm, the cancer miasm, we're going to find this sort of between psychosis. What's happening here? Between psychosis and, let me get to the more detail here. The main characteristics of the cancer miasm, as we've seen before, when we're looking at the post-Hahnemannian miasms, the main characteristics are perfection, control, and the opposite of control, which is chaos. So he considered it a miasm between psychosis and syphilis. And the main feeling, we cannot leave things alone or untended. There will be a movement to chaos, and that can lead to destruction. So my response must be to exert control, and to the point of perfection, so I can re-establish and keep maintaining order. And this can be experienced as stretching beyond one's ability, leading to exert superhuman capacities to achieve these difficult goals. Look at selected remedies and keywords from the mineral kingdom: argentum nitricum and arsenicum, and most of the arsenicum salts, nitricum acidum, and many from the lanthanide group, the lanthanides. Plant kingdom, we've got agaricus, the mushroom, anacardium, conamum, opium, Staphysagria well known, tobacco from the Asteraceae family. In the animal kingdom, Asterias rubens, starfish, and carcinosum, which is the main nosode. Keywords is control, perfectionist, fastidious. Things are going to be neat, tidy, correct, the way I like it. And the opposite is it gets beyond one's capacity and one ends up in chaos, order, loss of control, self-control. Let's look at a situation example. 35-year-old mother, 2 children. She's presented with burnout. She's determined to be the best mother to her children, not just any mother, the best mother. And at the same time, she has to advance well in her profession, not to make mistakes, and she also has to have a perfect relationship with her husband, not any relationship, but a perfect relationship. This is all too much, it's too demanding, it requires superhuman efforts, and it's relentless. There's no respite, rest, or recovery. So her body lets her down with adrenal exhaustion and thyroid overstimulation, a type of chronic fatigue syndrome. Okay, so we can see there's collapse here, in some ways a bit similar to the typhoid miasm, but the collapse comes from a different response. In the typhoid, it's always responding to a crisis. Here in the cancer miasm, it's trying to be perfect, trying to control, trying to manage. So there's a difference in the responses. Although the net result, one might see both of them with burnout or chronic fatigue syndrome or something similar like that. We get onto the tubercular miasm. And the main characters here, which we've covered before, this closed-in, oppressive nature. Time is short. It's a hectic feeling and needing to change. So like the cancer miasm, it's also between psychotic and syphilis miasm, but it's seen as closer to the syphilis miasm. So it's more destructive and there's more desperation. So we've seen before this closing down, restriction. We know that restriction takes place in the physical disease of TB, the fibrosis in the lungs, breathing capacity is reduced due to the fibrosis, there's restriction and constriction. We might see it also in certain cases of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease as well. Response is hectic, time is short, I've got to get moving, got to do stuff. Efforts are needed to change this oppressive situation and get out of it. But the hectic efforts also where the patient are resulting, similar to the cancer exhaustion burner, but there's more likelihood of tissue damage and destruction, it being closer to the syphilis miasm. Selected remedies, we've got antimonium tartaricum, also mentioned quite a bit as a possible good remedy for the stage 3 COVID-19 disease, that where the patient has got that severe breathing difficulty and lots of fluid in their lungs. Got calc phos, most of the phosphorus salts like phosphatacum, stannum metallicum, known as a good tuberculosis remedy, and zinc. From the plant kingdom, we're probably familiar with Coffea, Drosera, and Spongia, very well-known clinical cough remedies. The animal kingdom, got your Tarantula hispanica and most of the spider remedies, Apis and most of the insect remedies. There are some exceptions. And from the mammals, we've got Lac equinum, horse having to serve on and on and on. There are many nosodes from tuberculosis, Basilinum and the other varieties of tuberculinum. Situation example. There's a fascination with oppression and escape from it. So here is a clip from a series called Prison Break, or why people are fascinated with, and a clip from the Prison Break series itself. In the above example, time is absolutely critical. The brother must make hectic efforts to free his prisoner, his brother who's a prisoner, from the oppressive situation. Much danger, desperation involved. Our final fill-in model, miasm, is the leprosy miasm, and we can see that its main characteristics are like being a leper, that outcast. There's disgust, there's isolation, destruction, and desperation, very much like the syphilitic model. So it's just one stop away, very high desperation. I'm disgusting, I should be shunned, avoided by others. So I must be disgusting and loathsome. I need to isolate myself, shut myself off. This idea of the world is cruel. I can become cruel with myself, tearing, cutting, mutilating. And some of the key words, as we can see there, hopelessness, oppression, suffocation, isolation, biting, mutilation, disgusting. Selected remedies, Adomos, which is a crushed diamond, iodium, most of the iodide salts. The plant kingdom, a couple that we would know here, aloe, Hero brasiliensis, Hydrastis canadensis, a very good kind of antibiotic remedy, Laurus arasis, also mentioned in the COVID-19 suite of possible genus remedies. Cicale cornutum, very famous, that being the ergot contaminated rye plant, rye seeds. And Solanum tuberosum egritans Solanum tuberosum is a potato, and when the egritans, it is the fungus attacked and destroyed potato. So it looks black, smelly, quite loathsome. A major leprous remedy. From the animal kingdom, we've got Blatta orientalis. It's from the insect world, and it is the cockroach. Falco P, Falco peregrinus, it is a bird of prey, a raptor. Leprominum limnosode, and Rattus rattus, the rat. Situation example, we look at some youth in Tegweni who lose family, social links, start to live on the street, perhaps fall in with a Vunga group, become addicted, lose it, resort to crime to feed the drug habit, and they might feel that they are now too far gone to return to family or community, so they stay on the street, they stay in the group, and they do not make efforts to get involved in rehabilitation or find another path in life. But quite often, of course, I'm saying it's not easy for them, and that society doesn't favour that. We would also look with disgust and revulsion upon the life they lead. So many people can fall into abuse, drug addiction, self-harm, and here's a video to have a look at in that regard. And here's another video of culturally enforced isolation and rejection taking place in India with widows who are shunned by society. And finally, another leprous video, a little section from a film called Train Spotting, not for the faint-hearted to look at. You've been warned. Okay, so we'll stop this section now, and I will continue with the next section, which will be the applications, and look at the implications and what the Sankaran's extended Miasm model has meant for homeopathic theory and practice.